Hello, everyone. Welcome back inside Centura Health Training Center for another episode of Broncos Now. As always, I'm your host, Sydney Jones. And coming up on today's episode, the Broncos are set for their first road trip of the season. We'll hear from head coach Sean Payton, and Broncos lead writer Eric Dellala joins the show for a game preview. All that and more coming up. The Broncos hit the road today to head down to Miami for their first road trip of the year.
We try to stay on our schedule. We spend a lot of time on hydration, recovery. You know, we leave Friday, get up on their time, then practice, and try to. I think it's a little bit more challenging when you come here. We spent all this time studying the altitude, and unless you can come 2 weeks early, we learned that it was better to come as late as possible. So instead of Friday, we were coming Saturday. I think that's a challenge. So depending on the city, there, you head east, there's challenges. You head to altitude, you head to warm. It's part of our league, and you cover it, and then you go play.
Plus, Sean Payton discussed his expectations for Sunday's matchup.
Good road team. We're really good at home. We're good in cold weather, warm weather. We're probably a good team, and so. It's that simple, because I kind of went through it all in New Orleans, and we struggle when we leave the dome, and that was all historically because they had struggled, and we ended up, I think, becoming one of the top two road teams for a number of years. So I think it's back to how's the team, and then Mike mentioned it a few weeks ago, was 31-1 at home. I bet he had a good road record. I bet he, and so, I think that's pretty easy.
He also talked about how this team will look to respond to adversity.
I think our tackling, it's one of our keys in this game. These guys get the ball in space, and so you have to populate it and break down and be able to space tackle. They do a really good job. And so it's not just in the running game. It might be a pass that's just like a run that's completed quickly, and you got to pursue, shimmy down, and play with good leverage. I think that area is something I know Vance and our staff have been working on.
And now it's time to look at this week's final injury report. Now joining me here inside the Broncos podcast studio for a game preview is a Broncos lead writer, Eric Dellala. Eric, nice to have you in the studio again.
Yeah, of course, Sid.
Going to be a tough test this weekend as the Broncos look to face the 2-0 Miami Dolphins. Eric, I know there's been a lot of talk this week, from Russell Wilson, Joe Lombardi, head coach Sean Payton, just about this offense needing to be cleaner in the second half. So what are your expectations for, what do you want to see from them on Sunday?
Yeah, again, I think it's early, right? It's only been 2 weeks. And so to draw sweeping conclusions about, they're a first half team versus second half team, I think it's a little soon for that. We did see against Washington, them come back and score some points there late in the game, make it interesting there with the Hail Mary and the field goal drive before that. So not quite ready to say it's a trend, but obviously you want to see them be more consistent throughout the entire game, no matter if that's the first half or the second half. This is going to be an interesting game offensively because Vic Fangio typically does not allow big plays. He doesn't allow you to beat him over the top. And we heard Joe Lombardi talk about kind of putting a roof over what the offense can do. This is going to be a game where you're going to have to run the football well. You're going to have to probably convert some third downs, maybe move the ball down the field in longer drives. Obviously, maybe you find a chunk play here or there, but it might be closer to what we saw against the Raiders in terms of long possessions, trying to take what the defense gives you, and then just being efficient in the red zone. Obviously, when Vic Fangio was here for a long time, you saw the bend but don't break defense where you'd allow the team sometimes to move the ball, and there wouldn't be chunk plays, and then you'd buckle down in the red zone and you'd make a stop and you'd hold them to 3. If that's the same type of way that this game plays out, the Broncos just have to make sure that they have those extended drives as often as possible. You've got to avoid 3 and outs. Obviously, that puts your defense in a tough situation, especially when it's not going to be, I don't think, 100 degrees, but it's still going to be toasty and humid down there. Still a September football game in Miami. So you've got it's
supposed to rain, too.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got to help your defense out.
Yeah.
And you've got to be efficient and take advantage of your opportunities, right? We saw the Broncos against the Raiders in a low possession game have a chance there at the end in the red zone. If you have chances in the red zone, you might have to be perfect or near perfect in terms of scoring points to put yourself in a position to win this football game against a good team. So offensively, sustain drives, take what the defense gives you, try to hit a couple shot plays, but it's going to be, I would imagine, tough sledding in terms of big plays just because the Fangio defense is designed to prevent that. So more about efficiency and taking advantage of your opportunities when they come.
Where, going off of that, it's going to be a challenge for this Broncos offense to really keep up with the Dolphins offense in terms of how explosive they've been the first two games. So who do you really want to see step up for Denver on the offense this week?
Yeah, I think one way to combat an explosive offense is to keep them off the field, right?
Yeah, right.
And like I just talked about, if the Broncos can sustain drives and maybe make this a, quote unquote shorter game and limit the number of possessions, that could play to their advantage. And so one guy you would look at in that situation is a Javonte Williams, where he's had some good first halves here. Certainly against the Commanders, had some early explosive runs. Maybe this is an opportunity where he can have that same sort of impact throughout the whole game, kind of wear the defense down, help the Broncos maintain a time of possession edge, get some of those big first down carries, set up manageable third downs, those sorts of things that you could see from Javonte Williams. Maybe get in the red zone, be efficient and help this team punch the ball in if they're down close.
Definitely.
Those sorts of things, I think, from Javonte Williams would not only help the Broncos be more balanced on offense and set up play action, set up maybe a deep shot or two.
Right.
That's, you bring the defense down to stop the run. Now it opens up down the field. So he can help in that element, but just from a ball control standpoint, if you control time of possession and you shorten this game and you're efficient and you keep the Dolphins offense on the field, that might be a good approach as opposed to, and listen, you can't always determine or decide how a game's going to play out. But certainly the Patriots were able to keep the score down last week. It wasn't kind of the 30-point, what was it, 36-32 or something like that in week one against the Chargers. Yeah. 36-34. I mean, it was a close game there against the Chargers. Right. If you're able to keep it a lower scoring game, that could help you potentially pull off an upset down there in Miami.
For sure. Eric, all the talk this week has, of course, been the matchup between cornerback Pat Surtain and Tyreek Hill. It's certainly the matchup to watch this weekend. What can we expect there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough test, again, for Pat. And you think of Pat as like this big corner that plays well against physical receivers. Obviously, Tyreek has that physicality, but is also very fast.
Yeah, fast and small.
He kind of is the best of both worlds there in terms of he can block, he can make a play, contested play in space, but he's fast enough to run by you. We've only seen Pat play against him a couple of years ago in Kansas City, and Pat had a lot of success, right? He limited him. The Broncos' game plan that game in general was, I think, to not let Tyreek Hill beat you. They were successful. Right. Pat got an interception. So if he can match that performance and maybe you make a Braxton Berrios beat you or a River Craycraft or the Dolphins run game, maybe you force somebody else to beat you and just don't let Tyreek take over the game. That, who knows what the game plan is, but that would certainly be one way to approach things. And when you got Pat Surtain on the other side, that's as good as anybody in terms of somebody that could slow someone like Tyreek down.
For sure. Eric, on Thursday, we heard Vance Joseph talk about how he still expects this defense to be a really good unit, an elite unit. They focused this week on correcting some of those issues we saw in the first two games. So, going up against someone like Tua, what's going to be the key to try and stop him, slow him down?
Yeah, it'll be interesting because Vance Joseph's tendency, right, is to blitz and to bring pressure. Right. Tua gets rid of the ball faster than just about anybody. So, do you have to pick your spots where you pressure? Does Vance Joseph lean away from his tendency and play more coverage? Yeah. That's really fascinating to see what the chess match between Mike McDaniel and Vance Joseph will end up looking like, because you've got to find a way to slow them down. You're probably not going to entirely stop them. It's a good offense, a lot of speed. As Joseph said, it was like a track team out there. Yeah. it's more about limiting those guys. And can you find a way to at least make them earn it and work their way down the field? Vance Joseph talked about penalties and getting off the field on third down and how it can be demoralizing when you think you've got them stopped.
Right.
And all of a sudden they've got a fresh set of downs. But the counter to that is that if you're an offense, it's hard to go 12, 13, 14, 15 plays down the field without making a mistake or having a drive stall out or getting a holding penalty or something like that. It's hard to do that consistently. And so much of what the Dolphins do well is they hit that big play, right? And they get the quote-unquote easy ones. And if the Broncos can find a way similarly to how you would think Vic Fangio would approach it of maybe they score some points, but let's make them earn it. Let's make them convert a bunch of times and play clean football and earn it in the red zone. If you can do that, maybe you find some success and at least limit what they've been able to do offensively. Won't be easy, obviously, being tested in the secondary, but that might be one of the ways you could approach slowing them down.
Eric, you mentioned the secondary. I know safety Justin Simmons, he was ruled out of Sunday's game. So really, what's the concern there? I know we saw Delarian Turner-Yell step into the game last week when Kareem Jackson was ejected. But who else do you expect to see step up?
Yeah, I mean, Turner-Yell's a guy, right? A young guy with some potential, hasn't had to play a ton of defensive snaps. Vance Joseph is confident in him based on what he's seen at practice and in the preseason. J.L. Skinner, I don't know if he's ready or not to make that debut, but he could be a guy that could be, kind of a reserve option if you need to use him. I would imagine the next choice behind Turner-Yell would be Inaseng Bassi going back to safety like he did a little bit last week. You didn't see huge coverage breakdowns last week when this team was without Kareem Jackson. I mean, obviously you're better with Kareem out there than without him on the field, but the one deep pass down the field was just a really nice throw by Sam Howell, and you're going to be tested this week. Mike McDaniel, I'm sure, is going to go after a young safety, really a young player in any spot. But guys will have to rise to the occasion. Vance Joseph will have to put together a plan that can help some of those guys find success, and you got to go out there and play your best football.
Well, there's a lot of fun connections between these two teams, Eric. Should be a fun one on Sunday. Of course, Vic Fangio used to be head coach here. And, of course, we'll see Bradley Chubb again. And then Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel used to be an intern here.
Yeah.
Of course, is from the Colorado area as well.
Yeah, went to high school at the same place that our friend Phil Milani did.
Phil Milani, he did tell me that on Wednesday.
Yeah,
He likes
he's very
to mention
proud.
that.
He's
Yes,
very proud.
he is.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, appreciate you joining the show. Should be a fun one on Sunday.
Yeah, you got it, Sid.
Broncos fans, don't forget, Paramount Plus is your streaming home for every local NFL CBS game this season. Visit ParamountPlus.com to start your free trial and stream Russell Wilson and the team as they battle the league's best. Plus, get an all-access pass to 24/7 NFL content with CBS Sports HQ, Fantasy Football Today, NFL Slime Time, and more. And this year, Paramount Plus is your streaming destination for Super Bowl 58. Another action-packed Broncos season with NFL and CBS awaits, so stream Paramount Plus from any device all season long. Well, that'll do it for today's episode of Broncos Now. Broncos Country, thanks so much for tuning in. I'll meet you right back here on the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube on Monday following Sunday's game. I'll see you all then.